to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel, and Merry Christmas into this season. Might not be Christmas quite yet, but we're getting closer and closer to it, and we're certainly in the midst of the Christmas season, and it's just a great time of year in so many ways. I love all the lights, the light, the whole metaphor of light is just so powerful. Jesus, light of the world, and just how light just takes away the darkness. I could talk about that for this entire episode, but I'm not going to do that because we got a really important one today. Completing your comeback. We've been talking about comebacks for many episodes now. Man, this one's important. But let me talk a little bit more about Christmas before we jump in and just say, in this season of the year, when you're going to all the parties and trying to do all the shopping and trying to meet all your commitments, there's a lot going on. And one thing that I want to offer you is an easy way to get a Christmas gift, a very easy and inexpensive gift, and that is my book, This is Living Daily Inspiration to Live Your Faith. You can get a single copy on Amazon. Boom, it's in stock. They can get it to you very quickly. If you wanted to get, say, 5 books, for instance, you can get those through rickmcdaniel.com on our website. If you click the button that says donate, there's an option to get 5 or more books. And if you do that, you get a discount. In fact, you could essentially get, if you got 5 books, you could essentially get one free. And then you could keep it for yourself if you don't already have a copy, and give the 4 away as very inexpensive gifts. So for like $75, you can give away gifts, and you can get a gift for yourself, or you can give them all away. Somebody just ordered 10 books. You could do that. And they said they were just going to give them to different friends and family members. It's a very affordable way to do it. And the thing that's nice is, it's not like something they'll eat and forget about, but it's something that they'll read every day, because there's 100 devotions or meditations or readings, and they're each take maybe 3 minutes to read. So somebody's going to be using that book for, like how many months, right? 3 to 4 months, maybe longer if they read only during the week. And they'll be thinking of you and thanking you for giving them such a great gift. So it's really nice. I read one of the reviews that people wrote, and they said, man, I really like this book. It's my husband and I both use it, and it just sits on our nightstand and so easy to get to. So it's a great way. So you can just go, This is Living Rick McDaniel on Amazon, or you can go to rickmcdaniel.com and get multiple copies. You can get signed copies too, by the way, if you get them through rickmcdaniel.com. So great idea for a book if you're thinking about what's an inexpensive gift that I could give. And I just say one other thing is that I was interested to see that books is like in the top 3 categories of gifts that people give the most. So it's a gift people want. All right. Well, listen, we're going to jump in here today because this is just such an important episode, because I've talked about learning and insights and benefits that you can get even from a setback, talked about steps and components of a comeback, talked about various types of comebacks, whether it's health or career or relationships. And you got the information. I mean, there's nothing that can stop you from having a comeback. Well, potentially. Now, look, there are things that could stop you from completing your comeback, but all of those can be overcome. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, how to make sure that you complete the comeback, that you have the comeback that you want to have, that it doesn't somehow start but not finish. And completing is such an important thing. Persevering through the challenges of life is how you are successful, and it's the way you guarantee that you'll have a comeback. You don't quit because things are going to change. Things are going to get better. And I've seen it happen over and over again. And I believe it will continue to happen in the future. So if you refuse to get discouraged and you just say, I'm going to continue until I conquer, then you're going to have a great result and you are going to come back stronger than ever. If you give up, you're going to miss out. You'll never see the good things that God wants to do in your life. It's just a matter of persevering through. Maybe even now you're like, man, I've been trying to do the things you say, Rick, and it's just so hard and I'm just ready to quit. And I just want to say, don't give up. The dream isn't over. The setback is not too great. There can be a comeback. Absolutely, positively can happen. It can be hard and life can be unfair. We'll talk about that, but it can happen. And one of the great ways to think about this, a real way to sort of readjust your attitude, is a scripture where Jesus speaks in Luke chapter 5, beginning with verse 4. Listen to this. He says, row the boat out into the deep water and let your nets down to catch some fish. Master, Simon answered, we've worked hard all night long and haven't caught a thing. But if you tell me to, I'll let the nets down. They did it and caught so many fish that their nets began ripping apart. They signaled for their partners in the other boat to come and help them. The men came, and together they filled 2 boats so full of fish that they both began to sink. That's in Luke 5, verses 4 through 7, if you want to read it yourself. Gospel of Luke in the New Testament of the Bible. So that's a cool story, but there's a principle there, and the principle is cast out your nets again. Cast out your nets one more time. This is really what Jesus is trying to encourage us with. Peter's like, we worked all night long, we haven't caught a thing, and the answer is cast out your nets again. Don't give in to the disappointment that you may feel. Refuse to have quitting as an option in your life. Peter listened to Jesus and did it, and they caught so many fish that it took 2 boats and they were still sinking. What a comeback. What a turnaround. These guys were fishermen, by the way. That was their livelihood. So fish meant food. Fish meant money. Fish meant provision. Fish was the way they earned their livelihood. Every situation is unique. Each person has their own particular circumstances they have to work through. But this principle, cast out your nets again. Like if you're just discouraged today, cast out your nets again. Meaning don't quit, don't give up, don't think it's not going to happen. In Asia, they have a tree called the Chinese bamboo. For the first 4 years, they water and fertilize the tree, and there is little or no growth for 4 years. But then in the 5th year, the tree grows to 90 feet in 5 weeks. Hard to believe. The question is, did the Chinese bamboo tree grow to 90 feet in 5 weeks, or did it grow to 90 feet in 5 years? Grew to 90 feet in 5 years. If at any point during the 5 years the people had stopped watering and fertilizing the tree, it wouldn't have grown. So your comeback may take longer. You may be tempted to give up and quit trying, but if you're persistent and you persevere and you have endurance, you'll have a comeback. 4 years of nothing and then 90 feet in 5 weeks. I mean, that is an incredible picture of how life can be. I mean, there's something I'm working on right now. I am working on it, and I've been working on it for 2 years, and I haven't seen it. But that's okay. That's okay. Just going to keep believing and going to keep working, and someday it's going to happen. Our former president, Calvin Coolidge, famous quote, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination are omnipotent. Omnipotent's a big word for all powerful. That's the way to see it. And I love sharing this kind of message because so many people that I've come across as I've helped folks and spoken and written and interacted get discouraged and they want to just give up. Over 100 years ago, there was a guy named Gail Borden. He was traveling from America to England by ship. On that journey, 2 children died because they ended up drinking contaminated milk, and it really upset and bothered him so much that he set out to devise a formula where milk could be stored during a long sea passage without getting spoiled. And he was successful. He came up with something called condensed milk. I mean, you can go to the supermarket today, 100 years later, and get Borden's condensed milk. On his gravestone, this is what it says: "I tried and failed. I tried again and again and succeeded." Took him a long time to come up with that formula, but eventually he succeeded by refusing to give up. Cast out your nets again. Here's another powerful principle for completing your comeback. Disarm your disappointments. How do you persevere through challenges? You disarm your disappointments. Meaning you refuse to allow them to have power in your life or over your life. In the midst of challenges and disappointments, if you disarm them, and then they won't control your life or impact you negatively, and then you can have your comeback. Dwelling on disappointments does nothing to help your comeback. So just say, not going to let the disappointments have a place in my conscious mind. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to move upward, moving toward my comeback. I mean, the reality is that there is injustice in life. There are letdowns. People do things that they shouldn't do. Problems cause more problems. We talked about this in earlier episodes about setbacks. Outside influences can cause you challenges. You can't control what other people do. Other people's decisions and choices, even if they impact your life. People do, stupid stuff, and even good people do some foolish things, including us, by the way, as we don't want to point the finger at others as if we're somehow exempt from it. We all do. Choices cause challenges, can. Bad judgment, poor decision making. Sometimes it's our reactions that cause problems. Sometimes even good choices cause problems because you're doing the right thing, but people don't like that you're doing the right thing, or the right thing doesn't get recognized or respected. But listen, none of that can stand in the way of a comeback. If you disarm the disappointment, if you refuse to let it have power over you, then you're going to find out that nothing can stop it. It might delay it some. Might. Doesn't have to, but it might. But delays are not denials. That's an important thing to remember. I mean, life isn't fair, right? We know that. Nowhere, by the way, in the Bible does it say that life is fair. You won't find that anywhere. People get upset and blame God for things, but nowhere does God say that things will always be fair. Sometimes you do the right thing, you end up with the wrong result. And sometimes we go through experiences because we need to learn something. We're hard-headed and God needs to get our attention and uses a problem or a disappointment. So we're more open to listen and to learn. The resistance may be part of the comeback. Back in 1980s, the Soviet Union still existed was having problems with their cosmonauts coming back from space, suffering dizziness, high pulse rate, heart issues, and the cosmonauts couldn't even walk for days because their muscles had atrophied in the weightless, no-gravity environment. So scientists went to work on this to solve it. They wanted their cosmonauts to be able to spend over 200 days in space and then be able to function physically when they got back to Earth. And they designed what they called the penguin suit. It was a suit that all these elastic bands attached to every part of it. So whenever a cosmonaut would make a physical movement, they encountered slight resistance. They sent the cosmonauts into space wearing these penguin suits, where everything they did in a weightless environment required them to push against the resistance of the elastic bands. And when they came back to Earth, after over 200 days, they found no physical problems whatsoever. No heart problems, no muscle problems, no dizziness. The resistance was actually good for them. Disappointments are life's realities. Discouragement and disarming them is your choice. How do you react? Do you allow yourself to get discouraged and want to quit, or do you disarm them and decide that you're going to have your comeback? That is on you, but man, I certainly couldn't encourage you enough that you would refuse to give up and that you would say, I'm going to disarm these disappointments. And when I experience resistance, I'm going to say, okay, the resistance can be good for me. And it's going to work in my favor if I refuse to give up. Another great principle, I've taught these all over the world, friends. I really hope you're listening, maybe writing today. Conquer by continuing. Maybe you're frustrated your comeback is taking so long, and maybe you've lost faith that it's ever going to happen. But the key is that you conquer by continuing. Maybe you're thinking, I'm going to quit school. I'm not going back next semester. College is too hard, it's too expensive. Maybe you're saying, I'm done with this friendship, sick of it. It's one-sided. Feel like you're always giving, never receiving. Feel like you're being used. Maybe even upset with God. Don't feel he's delivered for you the way he's supposed to. You're not getting what you want in life. You think it's his fault. And I would just say to you, quitting's not the answer. It's never the answer. It never will be the answer. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, that there aren't times when, you might make a decision about college or about a friendship, but those are the exceptions, not the rules. Need to keep moving forward. You conquer by continuing. You can't get where you need to get to if you quit in the middle of the process. Think about Dr. Martin Luther King, 26 years old, brand new pastor. And people look to him to be the spiritual leader of a boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. I mean, why didn't they get one of the more veteran pastors? They picked this young guy. How much persistence and perseverance does it take to go through a year-long boycott? It was a year long. At one point, he was thrown in jail. A pastor thrown in jail for standing up for rights, civil rights. Spent 8 days in jail for pursuing justice. One time, he even got stabbed at a book signing. Just signing books. I mean, I've had them. I know what they're like. Just signing books for people. Someone stabbed them. Think of all the boycotts, the sit-ins, the rallies he led. Imagine the amount of stress and pressure he was under to bring about social change. How many opportunities did he have to quit, to pass on the leadership role? But he persevered. And the result was justice for people of color. And he did it all, and here's the thing, nonviolently. He's a true example of leadership from a Christian moral perspective. You can do it. You can hang on a lot longer than you think. You might think you can't, but you can. It's darkest before the dawn. Sometimes the toughest it will ever be is right before the breakthrough. It's hard to start over. You may not even want to. You don't want to risk another setback or disappointment. You've had your heart broken too many times. But listen, who knows what could change? Who knows how great the comeback could be? The turnaround could be phenomenal. The breakthrough would just be amazing. So you just have to keep continuing, keep moving, keep doing the things, the steps, the components we talked about in these previous episodes, in particular ones for whichever setback you have had and comeback you're pursuing. One of the greatest achievements, really, in human history was the building of the Panama Canal. You think there was this small piece of land connecting the two giant continents of North and South America. And instead of having to travel all the way around South America in very nasty weather, by the way, and at the bottom of South America, instead of traveling all the way around to get to the other coast of North America, why not just make a canal and cut an enormous distance off of the travel, cost, danger? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Okay, incredible amount of money and time saved, so let's do it. But it's Panama, and it's hot, and there's lots of insects, and it's hard work. So they began, and they were digging for a couple of months, and all of a sudden there was a collapse, and the dirt just poured back into the giant canal they had begun to dig. Can you imagine how discouraging that must have been? Months of heavy equipment labor, and all of a sudden pours back in. Thousands of workers digging for over 2 months with heavy machinery, and the whole project fell apart. So they turned to Army Engineer General George Washington Goethals. He was the leader of the project. Some of you know the New York area. You know the Goethals Bridge that connects New Jersey to Staten Island. So you know that's named after him. So they said, what are we going to do? And Goethals did not even hesitate. He didn't say, let me think about it. He said, dig it again. Dig it again. It's got to be done. So they dug it again, and they kept going. And now you have this incredible time-saving, money-saving canal that changed worldwide commerce. And we're all the beneficiaries of it today, especially, those of us in America. We have this very large country, two coasts, west and east coast, and they need to be connected. Sometimes you have to dig again. May not want to, but I'm telling you, you can. Mental toughness. One of the most fascinating scriptures for me in the Bible is in Exodus chapter 6, verse 6. It says, here's my message for Israel. I'm the Lord. With mighty power, I'll punish the Egyptians and free you from slavery. I will accept you as my people. I will be your guide. You will know that I was the one who rescued you from the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I solemnly promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it will be yours. I am the Lord. When Moses, who was the leader of the people, told this to the Israelites, listen to these words, they were too discouraged and mistreated to believe him. This was fantastic news for the Hebrew people. Their slavery was going to be over, accepted as God's people and delivered into a promised land. I mean, it's like as good a news as you can get. But the people's response was what? They were too discouraged. They couldn't believe the news. They were too beat up by life to believe, too mistreated to hear things could be better. They had gotten beaten down to the point that they couldn't receive the good news. And this is really about just being able to push through tough situations. Mental toughness allows you to face adversities. If you're going to make a comeback, you've got to have it. There is tension and stress in life. If you can't deal with it, if you can't be mentally tough, then you're going to miss out. Remaining optimistic in the face of adversity. Yes. Figuring out a way to move forward. This is what you have to do. You keep thinking how you can make it happen. You learn to respond positively, creatively, and energetically to negative situations. I'm going to say that again. Mentally tough people learn how to respond positively, creatively, and energetically to negative situations. Anything worth doing, and certainly a comeback, is going to involve some degree of pressure, some degree of dissonance. I mean, it's not going to be easy. Things aren't always going to be congruent. Everyone's not always going to hop on board. So you have to stay mentally tough. You don't cave. You don't give in to your emotions. You stay strong. And if you do that, you can have your comeback. Here's one more really important insight, and it has to do with something called margin. One of the reasons a lot of people quit is fatigue. Fatigue attacks our emotions and it leaves us weak. It leaves us self-protective. And it can leave us isolated. Working on a comeback can be hard and even exhausting. And the answer is margin. Dr. Richard Swenson coined this term, wrote a book about it called Margin, to describe the amount that's needed in life to be strong. It's the leeway between you and your limits. When you reach the max of your resources, your abilities, you don't have any margin left. And margin is room to breathe, freedom to think, permission to heal. It's time to be able to listen and to love. Margin exists for our relationships. A lack of margin causes us to want to survive instead of thrive. Without margin, the temptation to quit is great. So we live in this overload culture due to our pace of change, our endless activities, our unlimited choices, information overload, all that stuff. And so you have to somehow create margin. And there's areas of emotional margin, physical margin, time margin, financial margin. A lack of margin in any of these areas makes you susceptible to wanting to quit. So you establish margin or increase the margin in your life. You maintain a balanced life. You take periodic breaks. You learn to say no. You eat right. You exercise regularly. You get enough rest. You make sure you have enough fun activities in your life. You monitor your use of technology. You stay consistent in your time of going to church each week. And what happens is that you have renewed energy, and it ensures that you're going to stay persistent and determined. I spent a fair amount of time down at the Outer Banks of North Carolina because several people have offered their beach houses to me through the years as I've written several books. And one of the things that's down there, that's the most significant thing, most famous thing, is the Wright Brothers Memorial. This is a memorial to the two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, who are the first ones to have ever flown. And they're the founders, they're the originators of airline flight, manned flight. These guys were incredible. They had no college education, no formal technical training. They didn't have friends in high places. They didn't have financial backers. They didn't have government subsidies. And they changed the world. Life without air travel is unimaginable. We were talking earlier about Borden had to take a ship to go, right, from America to England. Now we just hop on a plane. I've been able to travel all around the world, 35 countries, 6 continents. How did I do that? Airplanes. Otherwise it's simply, I'm going to fly across the country here in just a few weeks. All the way across the country. It's 3,000 miles. You can't do it without airplanes. They just refused to give up. They just kept at it. Unyielding determination. They're just persistent, and they made it happen. They went through significant injuries. Both of them crashed numerous times, struggled financially, spent time in France and America. It was tough stuff. But listen, in the end, what happened? They were successful. Winston Churchill said the nose of the bulldog was slanted backwards, so he continued to breathe without letting go. He'll grab a hold and he'll persist and still breathe. You can do it. You can do it. You can have your comeback. Just stay after it. Be persistent. Be determined. and you'll have that comeback, and man, it will be sweet. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.